Welcome
intro.
to to the Solidity Insurance Group call. We have a really special guest on with us today. Someone near and dear to my heart, someone who's really always there to help out in any way that he can, always willing to give feedback, always really just kind of like a team player. And I think that that's really important. And I'm really thankful to have that at Family First Life. Now, never mind being a team player and willing to share, Steve, just to brag on him for a minute, he has not only like hit Hall of Fame 4 times in a row, he has been the #1 producer for 4 years straight, basically since he came into Family First Life, and has issued over $1 million each year. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah.
All right. And Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm great. You started talking about the cruise, and I was thinking back when we were on. If you want to talk about why you want to go on the cruise, that private island that they took us to, where you're just kind of like out in the middle of nowhere and it's just like chill, that like made it for me. I don't know. That was my highlight.
I was going to say that was one of my highlights too. That was huge for me because it was like we actually disconnected, but then we were all together too, which was great. And we were able to actually enjoy just like a peaceful day and like nothing was expected, so to say. So it was amazing. That was also my favorite part too, Steve. So I don't
No
think we could
doubt.
beat that view. So guys, get there. You want to be there. All right. Now, Steve, just to kind of hit the call off, for those few people on this call that maybe don't know you, will you just give us a really quick introduction of what you were doing before insurance?
Yeah. So before insurance, I actually wanted to be a chef. When I got out, actually going through college, I got a culinary degree. I worked in hospitality. I ran restaurants. I was running multiple restaurants. I was pretty much in that industry for like 16 years, 15, 16 years. And I knew it's actually a really funny story. I met a guy when I was working in one of my restaurants who worked for another insurance agency. He was selling the guy an IUL. This is like back in 20 like 14. And he started recruiting me. So he starts talking to me, starts recruiting me. I end up getting an IUL from this guy. And lo and behold, life comes full circle. He's been following me on social media, and this week he's like, "Hey man, like I really want you to work with me." I'm like, "Bro, I don't know if you have enough money for me." I'm like, "But I'm flattered that you want me." So I was in hospitality, and it was just one of those things where you know that there's more for you, and you just don't know what the avenue is. Like I struggled for a long time prior to doing this, where it was like, okay, you're in restaurants, you can make a decent living, but you really can't like break through the ceiling, and you really had to like move all over the country. Like I lived, basically from New York all the way down to Florida and kind of like different states in between. And it just was one of those things where I knew there was more, and then luckily kind of found the financial services industry through Mark Mead, who's a good friend of mine. So if you're out there, hire warm market people because they're good people. And it was just one of those things. It was time to make the change and make the move. And I went all in as you could go.
I love it. And I think, Steve, like you said, everything does work full circle. That's crazy to think about, but it's almost not so crazy on the social media side because like you put yourself out there so much. And we'll talk about that too in a little bit. But so getting started coming out of the hospitality industry, you have a relationship with Mark, warm market. You were like, you know what? I trust Mark. I'm all in. I'm gonna do essentially whatever he tells me to do. I'm already busting it 90 hours a week at the restaurant, might as well just do the same what I would do for myself and for my own business. Is that kind of how you were looking at it day one?
Yeah, 100%. It's actually funny. Like for anybody new, when you're getting into this or anything and you don't really know, like you know a little, you've done a little research. Yes, one of the biggest things is going to be okay, the person you work with, do you trust them if they're warm market, what have you? Um, as I look back on it, I'm like, man, like I had a lot of blind faith that it would work, and I think the blind faith, I knew I was going to work. Like I knew that I was going to do whatever it was that I had to do to be successful. And I knew that wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't always going to be pretty. But as I'm looking back on it, I'm like, man, like you didn't know what you didn't know. And it actually, for me, was a blessing because all I knew was simple things. I knew, okay, I'm listening and trusting him because I know him. He's telling me what to do, what to invest, and I'm just going to go to work. Like, I know at the end of the day, I can bet on me and I can work. So if that's any of you, like, you don't have to have all this tactical skill of, like, I had no insurance skills and a lot of the sales skills things, like you learn through, look at YouTube, look at Instagram, all the things that we like watch and are looking at all day long. But have faith in you, and then understand that this industry is financial services is like the biggest industry in the country, basically, to make money, and have a little blind faith and believe it will work as long as you do.
I love that. And I think that that's huge. I know that coming into the industry, I also had very blind faith. And like you said, in hindsight, it absolutely served me because if I knew every single little thing, I would have nitpicked it apart and debatably gave 21 reasons why it wasn't going to work for me. So, like
For
Steve
sure.
said, if you can actually come in blind faith and go all in, like you're probably going to win. Now, Steve, being the number one producer 4 years in a row, talk to us a little bit about like there's certain attributes that you have that other people don't. Like I'm just going to call a spade, right? What are some of the things that you say, you know what? Or you maybe look at just like anybody. Like it's not like you're judging, you're just saying like, hey, like if they do this, like do they realize it would level their game up this much, right? What are some
Yeah.
of those extra things that you do or things that you feel like anyone should be doing that you're reaching numbers that are that high for 4 years?
Yeah. I think little things done day in and day out become big things. So I'll give you just like a quick story. I write a guy, I don't know, 2.5 years ago. I go through my Miracle portal, like we all do every morning. I'm going through portals. I'm setting up my day. I have my appointments. I'm dialing. I'm talking to agents. Like you're overwhelmed in doing stuff, right? So Friday, I have an appointment. I think if I can't even remember now. I think he didn't buy, right? So as I'm going through my list of this dude that lapsed, I'm like, I tried to call him, phone wasn't working. I was somewhat in the area. I think it was 15, 20 minutes away. I'm like, I'm just going to knock on his door. I knock on his door. I write him a new policy in 5 minutes. He had gotten a new bank account. He had gotten a new phone, $150 a month. Did that take skill, talent, magic? No. It just took kind of a plan around one, when people say they don't want to invest in leads early on, when you don't, things like that won't happen because you're not going to have enough people that bought from you to begin with that might, if they lapse, get something new. If they are on the books, you get them something else. So you have to me, you have to do those things day in and day out. And then when you look at like a week and a month, like I think I issued or wrote like 45 grand this week. So I had new leads. I had old clients that I wrote something else. I had that lapse type of a situation. It's just doing little things. And then the second thing I'd say to that is honing in on like your sales skills. Like we're not all born natural salespeople. Some people actually are. There are some amazing salespeople in this country and in this company that you can tap into and learn from. So I remember early on, I was like watching everything. Now, I wasn't watching everything, I want to be clear, and not working. I was listening and watching stuff like in the car, in between appointments. And I think that made me better than I was because I literally just started mimicking people that did things at a high level. And now, as I'm, 4 or 5 years in, I try to continue to do the same thing, but I even try to do it at like a higher level. Like I'll give you an example. Like I want to do things in real estate. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like you've done a pretty good job over here in insurance. Like, let's go watch people the same way you watched them in insurance and real estate, and like you can learn some real estate. So I think you have to kind of mold those two things together. There's like hard work and going above and beyond and doing little things. And then there's how do I get my skills to be better than they are currently? And really all it is mimicking the world around you that's doing things at a very high level.
I love that. And I think that sometimes like the simplest answer goes the longest way. It's like if I've never done any of that, Steve, but today I say, you know what? I'm going to call back my lapses. And what's the worst that's going to happen? They're already lapsed, right? I'm gonna door knock a couple of people on my way home because I drive by their house on my way home. Like I'm gonna call the person back that wouldn't give me their bank information last week on the phone because they said they're at their friend's house, and I'm just gonna follow up with them and quickly see what's up. Like guys, these small little things that take, like Steve said, 20 minutes maybe to map out the plan. It's like those 20 minutes it takes to map out and plan are going to give you something a lot bigger as long as you're consistently doing it. Same thing, honing in on skills, on sales skills. I think that that's huge. You know, Steve, when I came into this industry, I was so bad at sales, dude. Like, literally, I couldn't write my own sister Christina. Like, literally, she wouldn't buy from me. And I'm not being funny. Like, that's how bad I was, right? So I'm like, okay, clearly I got something I got to work on, right? I watched this video about matching and mirroring that was Tony Robbins. It was literally like 5 minutes and some odd seconds long. That thing changed the game for me. It was about matching and mirroring. It was about how to basically, how do you talk to people? And guys, I think that sometimes, like, I know for me, right, Steve, like if I didn't watch that, like it might have taken me a whole lot longer. After that, I was like off to the races. I was like, oh, this insurance, like, you know what I mean? But we all need to hone in on sales skills because, guys, this is a people business. And the moment that you feel like I can't talk to people or I'm not I'm not good enough at sales. You already lost the sale the moment you start thinking about things like that. If you don't know what to say back when somebody says ABC, because Steve knows, Steve, you're only going to get a couple of objections in the home, right? Like one,
Right.
two, or three. And you know how to deal with them. You're like, boom, boom, boom. You're not like, okay, well, and you don't start getting all flustered. Now, guys, the first time you overcome an objection, sure, you might mess it up. But the second, third, fourth, 10th, 20th time, you're saying it with confidence. You're saying it with conviction. The delivery is completely different. So, Steve, I think that those are two things that all of us could do getting off this call today and could actually implement in day-to-day life. And I love how at the beginning of this call, just to point it out, Steve, you had said, you know, this morning I was, you know, preparing my day like we all do, catching up with agents, doing this. Steve is intentional with his time, very intentional. Steve also did not say like, oh, I like usually from 3 to 4 o'clock, I watch a training video. No, 3 to 4 o'clock is income. It's income producing hours. Those are times that the only way Steve's watching the video is if Steve's in his car because Steve's 100% face to face, right? For the most part, anyways. We'll hit on that too, Steve.
Yeah,
But
we'll hit on
my point is, guys, is like income producing hours need to be that income producing hours. After that, like that's when you want to implement more training. And I know that the moment that this industry changed for me was when I found somebody that I could mimic and literally just took their script and made it my own. Like I sound till this day just like the woman in the audio that I first listened to, like in the home, on the phone, whatever it is, because that was my base and that's what resonated with me. The quicker you can find somebody you resonate with and actually plug in and watch their stuff, like you're going to win faster. So, Steve, I love that. And now you're building a team. You guys are crushing it. You know, you have a lot of people getting up, getting going. Talk to us a little bit about what it looks like because Steve, if you just told me that you helped 24 families this week, right? Like how many people might have you recruited this week, roughly?
probably like 7.
Okay, so he helped 24 families, plus he helped 7 other people go into a potentially better financial situation. So it's like, Steve, you really helped 31 people, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and when we can look at it that way, like there's two sides of the business, I think we become really powerful. So Steve, talk to us a little bit about what it looks like selling, but also still taking recruiting seriously and building at a high level seriously.
Yeah, I think you have to look at, you have those 2 things you're doing. So it's like, okay, here's my 2 jobs, so to speak, right? And I'm quote unquote working. Now, like when we're working, we're not digging a ditch, we're not on a roof somewhere. Like we're on the phone predominantly or in front of someone. So like the way I look at my week, if 6 days I'm working, I'm on the phone or in front of someone from like 9 o'clock to like 7 at night. So like, and then you have social media working for you, which I'm sure we'll touch on. So like yesterday is a good example. I had a dude booked on my calendar who was a VP of sales at, I forget his industry off the top of my head. He saw stuff from me on social media, booked on my calendar because he wants to get an insurance and work with me. Okay. So the work I put into social media, which is work in itself, as you guys know, you do a great job with it. You have that. And now, okay, that's working for you because it's there 24 hours a day. And then during my day, I just have a list of just phone calls that I'm making. Like I'm calling current clients, past clients, new agents, agents currently. I'm answering things on our Slack. Like the more that you do, the more phone calls that you take and the more people you talk to legitimately in this business is the more money you make. Like it's as simple as that. Like, and you can control all of that. So now there's a balance between, and you know this because you sell a lot, selling, recruiting, training. And yes, it can be overwhelming. But what I find for me, I'm just trying to like really be intentional and schedule everything out. So like if somebody wants to talk to me about whatever, I send them my calendar link and I'm like, hey, like look at Tuesday between 2 and 5 and book at that because I know I don't have anything, whatever. And it's just you have to just continuously throw logs on that fire over and over and over. And you also have to continue to do it when failure comes. And that's the differentiator. You will fail a lot doing this. There were many days, all of us, if we had truth serum, we'd be like, yeah, I wish I would have quit like 97 times. But as you start doing it now, I guess I'm year 6. You're probably about the same, right? In that same realm,
Yep. Yep.
close to it.
Close to it.
You
Yeah.
know the drill. Like there's a lot of days like you feel like the world is falling on you, and then you have other days it's like, oh my god, like I'm swimming in gold. Like so, you just you got to keep your brain strong through all of it, and you can't get too high and can't get too low. You just got to be like, okay, like what's the next thing I got to do? Who's the next person? And I'll tell you this: when you're building a team too, and you know this, when things are terrible for you, they're a lot worse for somebody else on your team. So a lot of times when I'm struggling, I call somebody and I'm like, hey, let's talk. Let's not have a bitch session. Let's talk about what you got going on. I'm gonna tell you what I got going on so we can kind of compare and let's fix it. And I think
Mhm.
that helps when you're building a team.
I love that. And I think that that's really powerful. Like that ending part. I mean, the whole thing is guys, I love how Steve said we have 2 jobs, right? So it's like if you're here, you want to build a business, because like my thing, Steve, was like I didn't want like I love helping people with their life insurance, but I don't want to do it till I'm 80 years old. Like, you know what I mean?
For
Like
sure.
there's gotta be a time where I'm not in the field, right? So it's like if that's you, like you might want to start looking at it like this is 2 jobs, but you can't take away from the job that's going to feed you immediately and say like, oh, it's because I was doing this. Like, no one should get off this call and be, oh, I'm a full-time recruiter. Like, then go W-2 and ask somebody on the team that wants to build a team, like, hey, like, can I be your recruiter? Like, that's not Steve's point. Steve's point is like, the more you're on the phone, the more money you're going to make. Whether it's selling, it's recruiting, it's following up with agents, whatever it is, but talk to more people and you're going to talk to more people, right? And then I like how you said you got to keep your brain strong. It's like, guys, like just like Steve said, like there's days in the Steve. Have you ever like silently quit?
Oh
Like
yeah.
have you ever
Oh my God. I always feel like from like 7 to like 9:30, it's just like a volcano's coming. And then you start digging out. And then by like noon, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like I just sold 4 policies. Now like I'm on top of the world again.
right. So it's like, you're gonna have those days exactly like Steve said. It usually is that 7 to 9:30 that you're like, what's going on? And then you're gonna kind of warm up to your day, so to say. But guys, it's like the people that don't quit when things get hard, like those are the ones that you're going to see. Like Steve's on the call right now because he didn't quit, right? Like I'm on the call, like we're all on the call because we didn't quit. So keep your brain strong. You're going to have bad things that happen. I like how you said that you call an agent, maybe that might be going through something that's tough. And you're just like, it's not a bitch session. We're going to fix both of our situations together and bounce ideas off each other. And what I found in those types of sessions, Steve, is when I get off the phone, I feel a lot better. And typically, so does the person that I just talked to. And we both are going to implement a different idea that's going to help us in our personal life, or business, which is going to in return help our business. I'm really big on if you're not good, like your business ain't going to be good. And like, guys, I'm not always
Sure.
good, right? But I got to get myself back there. And that's why Steve talking about no highs, low lows. It's like, hey, we're going to hang out right here, or we're going to try to. And we're going to know sometimes our emotions are going to go here, and sometimes they're going to go here. But as long as we can get ourselves back here, that's what matters, right? So that's huge, Steve. And I think that people use sometimes like, oh, well, I'm writing business. Like, dude, this is a business. Like, we hear you, but like, there's 2 sides to it if that's what you want to do. So don't hold yourself to just one side of it is really my point there, guys. So Steve, thanks for that. And you just hit on that really quickly, like bitch session. Like what's the difference between that and an actual productive conversation?
like it's like saying if someone just calling to complain, like we could all complain, like we can complain all day long. Like there's no industry that's perfect, there's no company that's perfect. There's issues, problems, there's things that we deal with, but the reality is in this industry when we are paid, like we have rich people problems. And those are good problems to have. And we need to also, like, a lot of times I'll put those in perspective because I'm like, okay, when I didn't have a lot of money, I had like broke people. You know what I mean? So I'd much rather have rich people problems that I can fix pretty quickly by going and talking to somebody. So I'm trying to like teach that and convey that to somebody who's having a tough day, and usually, you can keep things in perspective for people. I think that's the biggest way to look at it. You have to keep in perspective, like, okay, you had a chargeback. Like, we get it. Like, we all do. Like, okay. Like, all right, what could you have done better to not have had it? And what can we do to sell two of them to wipe out the chargeback? Like, simple as that.
Right. So like solving the problem, not just like, these are my problems and this is why it's your fault, right? Or whatever it might be. So I'm with you there. Got to keep things into perspective. I know for me, throughout like being in this business, one of the best things that my mentors have provided to me is keeping things in perspective. And I think that that's huge. Now, Steve, your social media is always like going on. Like I feel like there's a post going out like every 5 minutes, and I love it. It's amazing. It catches my eye, and I know you, and I'm like still like, let me watch this, let me like this, let me comment, etc. Steve, talk to us about why your social media is that active.
I just started listening to people who are doing social media here at a high level. I have people obviously that help me do it. I don't do it all myself. But it is a commitment, as you know, it's a time commitment to do it, to do the videos, pictures, quotes, this, that, and the other thing. But I think you're trying to just convey to people that there are great opportunities and you want that drip on people. Like I think we do a post a day and then we probably do a post a day on our agency page, whatever. And then the stories are always active and you're trying to show a lot of things. You're trying to show like you're a real person, you're successful in business, you're successful in your home life, you struggle, like you're trying to kind of show a lot of different things. And I think you're trying to show it at a consistent basis because like the dude who reached out to me to work with me, like maybe he wouldn't have if I didn't post every day. Maybe he would have found somebody else that posted every day. You don't know. So I think that stuff is important when you're building and just in general nowadays, like whatever you're looking to do in entrepreneurship, I think like insurance is a gateway to be able to actually open up to, like I said, like if it's real estate or different things for you, you have to kind of put yourself out there. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of the times like I get a little cringy because I'm like, all right, I probably wouldn't be doing all this stuff or putting all this stuff out there if it was just like me. But you're like, okay, you're doing it for a reason and you're trying to share, help people build a business and kind of just get the word out there.
Absolutely. And guys, that's exactly what it does. And when you're able to hit on that many different points, it's like you might not hit on all those points today, but over time, we always say if you post it once, it's weird. If you post every day, it's normal, right? You want to make it normal. Like it's normal when Steve posts. It's not like, oh, Steve posted. It's like, oh, Steve posted. Like we all know. So and again, opening up different ventures, it's like that's huge. It's like but you gotta be present. You gotta actually do the work, and then there's going to come a time, like Steve said, like Steve's like, I don't post all day, but I have someone doing it for me. It's like, then there's going to come a time where you're like, okay, I'm ready to delegate this. And guys, like whenever you're ready to do that, do it. But Steve, for new agents that are out there and they're maybe listening, they're like, this guy, he's been the #1 producer 4 years straight. Like, I can never do that. I can't get the bank information on the phone. Like I haven't even heard my first policy. Like what's some advice you'd give to those agents right now?
For new agents, I think the biggest thing is you have to have that blind faith. Like I said, you have to believe, and then you have to work and really the biggest reason I think agents fail is it really has little to do with actual insurance. I think they don't know how to manage their money and they don't come into being an entrepreneur the way they need to. They come in like, hey, I'm going to be an insurance agent, which is cool. But if you don't manage your money correctly when you get into this. And then all of a sudden you're getting like advanced money and you're spending money, and you can get very upside down very quickly. So when I'm like recruiting people and talking to people, before I even talk about like taking the test and getting the license and what the insurance industry does, before I even get to any of that, I want you to understand the mentality of an entrepreneur and what that looks like. Because insurance, like, I don't want to downplay it. It's not easy, but it's not crazy complicated. Like, there's three types of policies. We work with 30 different carriers. There's certain nuts and bolts to it, and it's fine, and sales skills and all that stuff. But like, the groundwork here to be successful as an agent is structuring a business for yourself and understanding what that actually means. Because if you don't, that's why people fail. That's why people roll debt. That's why people have their own debt, because they didn't actually like start the business correctly. They were just like, all right, cool. Like, I went in and I spent $500 on leads, and, I sold two and they both charged back. And, the money I got paid, I paid my rent, and now I'm screwed. Like, I'm trying to talk to people about how can we leverage credit, business credit, what we need to spend, what the schedule needs to look like, what the sacrifice needs to look like, how when you get paid, how you need to manage your money, how you need to allocate money to pay taxes, how you need to utilize tax breaks because you're now a business owner to eliminate paying taxes, and how you need to create profitability. And profitability also creates cash flow. This is like one of the biggest and best cash flow businesses that there are when it's done right. When it's not done right, it'll bury you in like 10 minutes very easily. So I'm trying to talk to new agents about that stuff first. And then from there, okay, now we're going to look at different types of leads, lead flow, lead spend. Are we doing virtual? Are we doing in home? What's our schedule looking like? And really like trying to help them understand, like, in the first 9 months of the business, you got to really bust it to build up that cash flow, to then get yourself to back end money, to renewals, to having that book of business a year later that you can work, stuff like that. So that's kind of like where I start with new agents, kind of like, we're starting a business. Let's start from the ground floor.
And I think that that's awesome. And it speaks volumes just because, like you said, if you don't know how to manage your money, you're going to find yourself in a really difficult situation here quickly unless you work really hard. Um, and just being able to have that conversation before there's policies written, before the chargebacks. Of course, we can be reactive, if you will, but it seems like you're really proactive on that. And to be honest, guys, I would say the groundwork is going to be what is going to determine if you're successful or not. But the great thing is you can always change your groundwork, right? You can always say, hey, I got to fix this. Hey, where am I going wrong this way, that way, etc. But Steve, outside of that, thank you so much for being on with us today. This call was extremely helpful. Before we jump off today, any last tip of advice you'd give to any agent out there today?
Yeah, I would just say, I think believing in yourself, it's kind of like a cliche thing, but a lot of people don't believe in themselves that do this, and that's conveyed to your client. So whether you are a novice or whether you have a little, little skills, or whatever, wherever you're at, believe in you, because when you believe in yourself and you have that kind of conviction and confidence, that's going to pass to clients. And sales is all about passing to the person across the table or across the Zoom from you. You're giving them kind of like your passion for what you do, your passion for the policies, your passion for helping people. But that comes from confidence. If you go into situations and you don't have it, they're going to eat you alive. Like, clients will legit eat you alive. You'll sell some of the like simple ones, but you're not going to sell most of them, because they're not going to buy from people that they don't believe have conviction in what they're doing and conviction in like the products that they're selling and stuff like that. So I would say that for new agents, like, believe in the fact that you went and got a license, believe in the fact that you got contracted and you work in this industry, and you work with a great upline like you are. You work in a great company like we work, where you can get answers when you need them, and talk to clients with confidence, because they'll buy from you. You don't always have to have all the answers. But if you know where to tell them, hey, I'm going to get you the answer, and I'm going to get you the best answer that's going to help you, like, sales is about just like convincing people like I'm the best man or woman for the job. And I'll leave you with this one quick story. I had a client from 3 years ago, sold him a term. He canceled it. I got him on the phone and I was like, this makes no sense. You need to have this. And here's why. He had 2 kids, whatever. Okay. I got a call from his ex-wife Monday. He died at $100,000 term. He's had it, whatever, a little over 3 years. And I started talking to her about my interaction. And like when he canceled, he was like fighting me on getting it back and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, man, I'm really glad that you fought him because he has 2 kids and he had no other insurance. And now he's getting paid 100 grand. And I was like, damn. I was like, I'm glad. And I do feel, and you will feel like this sometimes, like all day long, I feel like I'm in a boxing match. Now I like to fight, so I'm kind of good with that. So I'm not always mad. Some days I wish the fight was a little less, but my point of that is like, you got to fight for people in getting them coverage for that exact reason. You got to fight for being able to make sales and put food on your table. Like that's what this is. Like, this is not always going to be, roses and puppies. It's going to be gritty sometimes, and you got to kind of be ready for that. And I think the person that's ready for that will be successful if they're willing to kind of fight for themselves and fight for their clients.
Absolutely. And like, what an outro. Guys, believe in yourself. That compounds. It compounds one way or the other. Hopefully it compounds up. And then Steve, that story, I just got like the chills when you told me, because guys, all it takes is one call. And Steve was just like, dude, you have kids. And then he gets a call Monday that the person passed on. Like, that's wild. But guys, that happens every single day. Like, whether you think it does or doesn't, how many people have you heard on calls say similar things like that? I have a similar story too. I wrote a woman accidental when I first got into the industry, probably one of the first policies I wrote. And literally 1 week later, she passed away in an accident, and she had 3 kids. They was paid out $600,000. Like, the kids would have literally not had mom or dad because dad wasn't in the picture, but like at least they had something to get them going, right? So it's like, guys, stand up for the beneficiary. Like, Steve called and stood up for the kids, right? Like, when you're on the phone, think about the person that they're looking to protect versus thinking about the person you're on the phone with, right? Like, and that's really powerful when you can change it to, this conversation is not about Mary. It's about Mary's son, John, who she's looking to protect, and what it's going to look like for John. Everything's going to change for you. But until that day comes, it's going to be transactional. So Steve, I just think that says a lot about you. Guys, call your lapses, call the bank's insufficient funds, call anything that falls off. The worst that's going to happen is it falls off. It already fell off. So Steve, I think you gave awesome advice there of just saying like, hey, be yourself, learn how to believe in yourself, and realize the people around you that are helping you, they do believe in you, but you got to believe in yourself too. Confidence conveys or it doesn't, right? And we all know that. So it's like, even if you don't know it, say it confidently. That was one of the first things I was taught in sales. Even if you're not positive about exactly how you're saying it, say it confidently. Like Steve said, hey, I can get some help. I know somebody who exactly has that answer. We were talking about it in the office today. Let me give him a call. Do what you got to do, but just stay in a state of like, I believe in myself. I can help this person's beneficiary. And like, I'm going to do it confidently and competently. So you're going to have both sides going. And then biggest thing, like, I love that you just said, is stand up for the beneficiary.